you very much. Thank you very much, Sarah. I was just saying to Sarah before everybody else came on that I've not used Zoom in about a year, so I've no idea how to share a screen on this. So bear with me a second whilst I sort out that. I actually can't even see my presentation. I wonder if I do this screen. Sorry, bear with me a second. So I'm something of a newbie to Zoom. Can you see that? Anybody? Yeah, thumbs up. Okay, that's good. Hang on, it's just going to work out how to drop that down. Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining today. Fabulous to see you all. As Sarah said, my name is Rhys Humm, and I'm new business manager in Costa Partnerships. I'll just give you a quick overview of what Costa looks like, if I may. So we're effectively set up in 4 particular areas. So we've got our equity business, which is our bricks and mortar stores, which are all over the UK, our franchise partners who operate stores to our brand standard, Costa Express, which are those fabulous machines that you see in pretty much every petrol station in the country at the moment. And then sandwiched in the middle of that is corporate partnerships, which is where I live. So we work with partners whose primary activity is not necessarily being a franchisor, but could be running like FM in a hospital, or could be a university or a motorway services area, or showing a film. So basically they will run the licensed store alongside of it. Also, we have our We're Serving Costa Coffee, or Proud to Serve as it used to be known as, which a number of you may be familiar with, which basically is like a clip-on to an existing food and beverage outlet. And so you can have our famous coffee and sell our impulse range. My personal role has evolved over the last couple of years to work really closely with the university channel. So I'd like to talk today about some of the challenges we've faced into over the past few years, relating primarily to people and to planet, and about how Costa is approaching some of these tricky subjects. If anyone's got any questions throughout, please do shout out, and we'd be delighted to help. If not, we can have a natter at the end, and I'll try not to waffle on too much. I think it's fair to say the world looks very different over the past 5 years for people and planet. We've gone from Brexit through COVID, and now this horrendous war going on in Ukraine. And if you look at some of the words I put on the screen there, I think most of those didn't really exist 5 or 6 years ago, and suddenly there's a lot on there, which we have just fitted into the everyday vernacular. So things, whether that be sort of like furlough or hybrid working or hybrid learning for that matter, social distancing, Putin, doom scrolling, climate emergency, hashtag be kind, BLM, self-isolating, or even the fabulous Captain Tom. It's fair to say for the last 5 or 6 years we've really been through the ringer. This has led in terms of a number of feelings and behaviours across many people, such as anxiety and loneliness, more so than ever, fear of the outside, fear of uncertainty, as well as a desire to help the planet and those who exist within it. So, as mentioned, I'd like to talk a little bit about how Costa has acknowledged both the feelings of its people, as in people who work within our business, but also people who supply into it, and of course the customers as well. And we've had to create a bit of a roadmap to do that, which, as with any good roadmap, is continually evolving. But also it's the expectations of those people and the responsibility to the planet, and making sure that sort of coexists alongside of it. So this is about saying yes, what we do, but hopefully I'll give you a sort of a few ideas that you may be able to use within your own businesses and institutions as well, where they don't already exist. You may well have lots of these in place, but just sort of share a few ideas, and hopefully we can talk about them at the end. So we've created over the past 2 years 4 new platforms for our people. This is very much a bit employee-led. So we've got sort of, and it's kind of on the back of like BLM and Be Kind, and a global desire to be more inclusive, to simply do better. So we've got our Belong set up, which is about culture and heritage. And then Together, which talks about sort of gender and balance. Shine, which runs alongside of the National Pride Scheme. And then Costa Inside Out, which is really sort of opening up about mental well-being. I'll come on to talk about those in a bit more detail now. So Costa employs people from all over the world, whether in our store support centre or global territories. And the internal Belong network was set up by a lady who is super passionate about equality and culture. So the first steps in the network provided a platform for people to talk about their experiences of discrimination and otherness, if you will, from team members. We've had team members all over the world. This has consequently given us great working projects to broaden the inclusivity of our culture, and has been very, very well received. Move on to sort of inclusivity and gender. So following the gender balance report a few years ago, it was important to acknowledge the work that still needed to be done to address gender balance and pay. And there was a real sort of deep dive done into this. And it's like, how are we performing? How do we need to do better? What do we need to do to redress all of that? So this is continually ongoing. All of these projects, they've started, but they always sort of build and build and build. I was recently in an internal book club, which sort of was designed to address this. And the book there, if any of you have read it, it's called Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez, which explores the data bias in a world designed for men. Absolutely fascinating from a personal perspective as a father of a daughter, but also of a son. It was really important for me to sort of be involved in that. If you don't understand the game, how do you influence the game? So from a daughter's perspective, I want her to grow up in the best possible way, and from equally from my son's perspective, how he needs to behave correctly and set him up for the best possible future. Inside out, it's good to talk, but also sometimes just to listen as well. So mental health challenges are clearly very much on the rise the world over, with a much greater acceptance of its impacts. We're continually seeing phrases now such as "it's okay not to be okay," and I've personally sat on numerous calls to better understand how this impacts people, what good coping methods we can use to ensure strong mental health, and a reminder that the last 5 or 6 years has been really tough. So sort of understanding how we process that. So our team worked really tirelessly to sort of help people, particularly through sort of virtual connections and stuff. And there's been all sorts of levels of the business who've been involved in this, which is fantastic to hear. When you hear people at sort of like exec board level who are actually going, do you know what, I do suffer with this. It's really sort of helping other people to be able to talk about these things and remove the stigma. I think is probably the key aspect to this. On top of that, we've set up a Costa Hardship Fund, which basically allows employees to anonymously request for money at a time of hardship. There are no questions asked, and there is never a need to repay it. So this is genuinely a sort of support function which sits there in the background to support difficult times. We've run this Shine campaign for a few years now, and it sits alongside of Pride, which I'm sure you'll all be familiar with. So it sort of supports the LGBT plus network, and it manifests itself in many different ways. But the whole sort of concept behind it is about bringing your whole self to work, and it should be everybody should be able to express themselves in a way in which it is absolutely right for them. So it is around sort of coloured cups and that sort of stuff, but actually everybody within the business dresses up in that time in the brightest, loudest colours they can, whether that be me sat at a desk with this background, which somebody once said looks like I'm reading the Costa News, or whether that be people in store, but everybody gets really stuck into it and really sort of embracing, which is a great cultural aspect to have. There's also a financial aspect to this as well, whereby a pound from the sale of each reusable cup goes into the switchboard LGBT plus helpline. I mentioned that a number of these initiatives started 2 years ago, kind of like start of pandemic and stuff, but just to emphasize that this actually came into my inbox literally yesterday, internally and stuff. So it is ongoing, and it is one of those things that doesn't sort of like get started and then pushed to one side. Actually, we do live it and breathe it. So it was talking about Stress Awareness Month, and I don't know about you guys, but sort of just reading the news over the last couple of weeks has been pretty stress-inducing for me and a number of my colleagues, for a number of reasons. So it's important to be able to have that outlet. I mentioned earlier about a book club we're doing at the moment. The next one actually we're doing is, I don't know if you can see this, it's called The Kids by Hannah Lowe, and this is actually talking about it's poetry in relation to sort of racism and understanding the world better. Clearly cultural festivals, if you look at sort of Ramadan and Easter coming up, celebrating Pride, doing more with our Inside Out networks, that's the mental health one, and talking about building mutual respect and understanding. And all of this comes under the banner of inclusivity and working more closely together to understand each other's needs, ways of working, and how we can actually support each other better. But moving away from the sort of the internal aspects that we do, and sort of look at some of the external pieces, we got involved in a scheme a few years ago called Too Good to Go. It's used in many locations outside of Costa as well as Costa itself. And the premise behind this is that it's stopping edible food going to waste. So it's also providing a cheap meal to those who choose it as well. So the concept works really simply, whereby you go in into a store and buy a magic bag. So customers get a lucky dip of food, which is worth £10, but you only pay £3. And this is all food that is in date, but would be out of date the following day. So the impact has been quite stark. If you see some of those figures on the side, and those are 2020 figures, or end of 2020, so it's gone up significantly since then. But we've saved over 69,000 meals from being redistributed 69,000 meals. 1.2 million app users. So there's actually been a lot of sort of digital engagement from our perspective as well. Crucially, it's saving tons and tons and tons, 172 tons on this figure of CO2 emissions, which is the equivalent of like 194 flights from London to New York. So big impacts, and it touches in many different ways. So this may be something which would work really well within your own institutions, not just where you've got a Costa on site. Our recent collaboration with M&S Food has also seen those going into magic bags as well, which is great. So sort of adds to the magic, if you will. Talked before about loneliness, and loneliness is a really interesting one, in the sense that if you imagine over the past couple of years how, yes, people have been sort of crammed into their own houses, and David talked earlier about having sort of fighting and warring teenagers and stuff. For some people, that they've not been able to get out of their house at all and don't have anybody sat with them. So actually loneliness works in many different ways. And sometimes you may want to leave the kids to get out of the house, but sometimes it's a case of like, you've not seen anybody for a long time. So Chatty Cafe was actually founded by somebody who was external to Costa. It's a lady called Alex Hoskin. And she was a young mum, and she found herself without companionship throughout the day. So she approached her local Costa store about providing a welcoming table, and the idea was then adopted across our estate. It's used by a huge cross-section of society. So, it might be sort of homework clubs, it might be police, elderly folk, craft clubs, all sorts. But as mentioned, sort of the lockdown aspects has meant that actually people have really missed that sort of in-person connection. So this is a really nice scheme. Again, it could be wholly adopted anywhere outside of our stores. It's just a nice idea. And I think to talk about the, sort of specifically about universities, if you think for many of these guys at sort of 18 years old, this will be the first time they've ever been away from home. So actually having an environment where you can just sit down, pitch up, and know that the person sat opposite you is actually there because they want to talk as well, can be really helpful, and it's great for mental well-being. We've got something called the Costa Foundation, which you may have heard of. It was founded back in 2007, back when Costa was owned by Whitbread. And it was designed to positively impact communities in which our coffee is grown. So we're sort of looking more at the sort of supply chain now rather than the customer facing aspect. For growing coffee, for many people, it's not just a job. It's not something you do for a couple of years and then sort of pop off for a career change. For many people, it will be something their parents did. It'll be something you do, and it'll be something that your children will go on to do as well. So crucially, sort of providing the infrastructure for farmers, ensuring they're paid fairly and they have strong crops is really crucial. And for every reusable cup sold, we donate £1 to the foundation. To build on this, so we've seen it sort of growing year on year. So we've been building new schools or extending existing ones, investing in water supplies, providing electricity. I can't emphasize enough the need for safe education for boys and girls. We talked about sort of gender imbalance and stuff in many developing countries and coffee growing countries. It's very sort of male dominated. So actually being able to provide safe education for boys and for girls is so important. Technology coming in. So, as building that infrastructure in there, toilets, clean water, promoting gender equality, and allowing the students to grow crops. So it's really sort of like developing all the sort of key skills that are needed there. We've raised over 16 million so far. More than 90,000 children have attended our schools. We've got over 85 school projects completed, which is a phenomenal number, and it grows year on year. In terms of our actual sort of engagement as employees of Costa, we put the fun into fundraising. Sorry, that sounds very corny. No apologies for that. stores they're frequently doing their own initiatives. So it might be sort of like balancing 20p on a lemon. And if you balance 20p on a lemon, you can win yourself a small free drink. The 20p play goes straight into the Costa Foundation. It's not as easy as you think. We've had people doing sort of personal challenges and 3 peaks challenges and all sorts of different things. And I think last year alone was something to the tune of about 280k that we raised for the foundation, which equates to, I believe, two new schools. So that work is continually ongoing. It's something we as a team really get invested in. Speaking from a personal perspective, that chap who's on the Santa sleigh there is actually me. To be clear, you've probably not met me before, but actually there is a lot of padding down there. But this was a match funding scheme where Costa supported me. So I was hopping on a Santa sleigh as Father Christmas for our local round table and doing a collection for St Richard's Hospice and Acorn's local children's hospice, both causes very close to me personally. And the funds that we raised, Costa very kindly match funded. Which was absolutely brilliant. And it wasn't necessarily directly related to our foundation, but what it's doing is it's showing that actually we can be involved in communities as well, and help people around us who really need it. Going to move on to cups. So we'll talk about sort of like slightly more sort of people planet angle here. So coffee cups has been, sort of something which has been on the agenda for quite a long time, and the recyclability of them. We understand it's an industry-wide problem because basically the plastic lining the cup means they cannot be thrown into standard mixed recycling bins. So the cups actually have to be separately collected and separately recycled at any of the 4 UK recycling facilities. As the UK's largest coffee shop brand, we wanted to do something to address this. So in 2016, we became the first coffee chain to introduce recycling points in all of our stores. By doing so, we encourage customers to recycle any paper takeaway cups via one of our stores up and down the country. And crucially, we're not precious about which brand of coffee cup comes in. It doesn't have to be Costa. It can be any cup, whether it's branded, unbranded, whatever. But we'll take care of it and make sure it's recycled. Not stopping there, we also then 2 years later partnered with Valpak, who are an independent waste management service, to launch the UK's National Cup Recycling Scheme. Through this scheme, we actually pay the waste collectors an incentive for every tonne of cups they collect, which helps to fund the ongoing infrastructure and processes for cups to be recovered and for recycling. We've actually recycled over 155 million cups. And that's we're now seeing some more and more places feeding into this, whether that be sort of offices, shopping centres, universities such as yourselves, transport hubs, local councils, and they're all getting collected up now and put into this. It's really great for Costa that actually more and more people are getting involved in this, and it's not just us, because ultimately the infrastructure will continue to get better and better the more people who buy into it. Sarah, would you be able to show that video link which I sent to you? If I stop sharing for a second.
I was going to say, if you're able to stop sharing, yeah, open up.
Our Costa Coffee takeaway cup is iconic, from its colour to its unique waffle texture. Today, we are excited to share the innovative changes we are making to boost our cup's sustainability credentials. As a global total coffee company, we have a huge opportunity to make significant positive changes for our planet and to lead the industry on packaging sustainability. You'll notice that our new cup actually looks and feels the same, and our crafted drinks will taste as delicious as always. The most important difference is something you wouldn't even spot: our brand new 100% plant-based lining. By replacing the oil-based plastic lining of our cup with a renewable alternative, we can now proudly say that our cup is made from 100% plant-based materials. This means we're able to reduce our cup's carbon emissions and our business's reliance on fossil fuels. We are proud to be moving forward on our packaging sustainability journey as we continue to take steps that might appear small or even invisible, but that really will make a big impact. So when Costa Coffee fans around the world order their takeaway coffee, they can continue to enjoy a consistently great coffee experience, confident in the knowing that we are helping them do their bit for the planet, one cup at a time. We've tried and tested many different types of packaging and made sure to only choose materials that can be recycled after use. It's a cup that's good from start to finish.
Thank you, Sarah. Let me just get back to sharing mode again.
Sorry, Rhys, is any of this marketing material available at site level?
Absolutely, yes.
So I should be able to get that through my contractor?
Yes, you should. Yeah. So who are you with? Sorry.
Chartwells.
Chartwells. Perfect. Okay. Yeah. So they should have access to all of that. If you need a push at my end, just shout out. I'm guessing you probably know Sarah Wildman.
No.
No. Okay. No problem at all. That's fine. No problem at all. More than happy to pick up. But if you can ask directly through Chartwells, that they should be able to provide this. If there's any challenges, feel free to email me and I'll push it
Perfect.
through.
Okay. Only because some of that is really good messaging.
Thank you. Thank you. Can you guys see my screen? Has this come back up again? I can't see if anyone's put your thumbs up or not. So
yeah, we can, Rhys.
Great,
yeah.
Thank you. Superb. So hopefully that video made a little bit of sense there. I think the point to note on this is that at this moment in time, there is no perfect solution on a cup, in the sense that, yes, there are compostable cups, but they take about 300 years to compost. So we've approached it from a different angle as we go on the journey. So, this is kind of like 2 years into a 5-year plan. So at this moment in time, it's being cost as investment to say, let's change the lining so that it's not coming from a fossil fuel, and that actually it's coming from something much more sustainable, i.e. it's plant-based. So whilst it's still a plastic lining, it's a plant-based plastic lining in there, which is a much better story than waiting several 100 million years for organisms to go down and create oil and plastic and all that good stuff. Say it is a journey. So we're investing in that. We're probably about 2 years into a 5-year plan on it, but it's been cost as investment to do this and make sure that actually, it's not sort of going to change the costings for any sort of end users, any of you guys in your universities and stuff, but actually it just comes through exactly the same. The consumer won't notice any difference at all, other than the fact it's doing better by the planet. We're in a similar, hopefully this is going to move on. There we go. Similar situation with our ready to drink cans, which have been hugely popular, and particularly sort of like the Gen Z guys who frequent your establishments. So totally recyclable, and 75% of that is already recycled aluminium. But we acknowledge there's 25% more to do. 25% more to do. And again, part of the journey, it's understanding how we can get more of that into the supply chain, and make sure it keeps coming back for all the right reasons. We've done a scheme called BERT, which is bring, use, reuse, take back, or BERT as it's called. So this is trialling in Glasgow at the moment, and it's Costa's way of saying that you can borrow a cup, so you scan it and then take it away. Because if you imagine you walk into a store, you might not have your reusable cup with you, but you don't want to sit in. So, and you don't want to sit in, but you've got a takeaway cup. You go, if I put it in any old bin, is it going to get recycled? Probably not, is the answer. So by having one of these, what you can actually do is get it scanned when you go in, and it sort of recognises your details, get it filled up with a cup of coffee, and then you can walk off site, go about your day, and then take it back to a store a few days, few weeks, a month later, and then it gets scanned back in, and then you get given a replacement one. So it's just sort of like this continual sort of takeaway methodology, which allows you to be better to the planet and continually use these things. Know that they're going to be sufficiently cleaned. Just if you've got obviously fresh milk in there and stuff, you want to make sure that it's properly cleaned. So this sort of like acknowledges all of those needs. We're hoping to get some feedback from the Glasgow trial, which has been running for about 3 or 4 months now. I think in about 2 months' time, it's like a sort of 6-month trial. And then if it's gone well and we've got the right learnings from it, it'll start to cascade out to other aspects of the business, which is really exciting. We've also created something called an R cup. So this is really popular, and basically it's cups that have been made from 100% from recycled cups. They're designed to last over 10 years, and after just 9 uses, the carbon footprint is offset. So really, really good. They're also 100% recyclable as well. Hugely popular. So all of those cups, which have been, 155 million cups we talked about, which have been recycled, 5.4 million of those have already been used to create new cups, which will last for 10 years. That's a really, really exciting message. Moving away from cups, we started doing stuff with our coffee grounds as well. You think like the coffee ground has already served a purpose. I personally love the fact that having served a purpose, it can now be repurposed again. So it can be created into coffee logs. We've done over 15,000 tons of this so far. And basically these are available in such outlets as the Range and many others, whereby you can actually take these home. You know that it's already had one use, and now it's going to get another use in terms of heating your home as well. We've also got this grounds to ground scheme, which is quite exciting. So it's basically local people can actually pick up grounds from their store and use it as a fertilizer in their gardens. So any of the sort of green fingered folk out there at the moment, what it does is it adds nitrogen to your compost, or it can act as a soil fertilizer, which improves drainage, water retention and aeration, as well as attracting earthworms, which are my 2 young children's favourites. And then an overall carbon reduction project. So this is, we're actually going to be releasing a new statement on our carbon reduction project really soon, but this is the current bit at the moment. So 3 projects kicked off on this, one of which was mapping our carbon footprint. So it's about understanding right through the value chain, what are we actually doing? So, the bean which is grown in Colombia or Ethiopia or Vietnam, we source from a wide area, but, what is the impacts at that local level? What is the impacts of, sort of carrying it across the seas, getting it into a cup? What about all of the plastics, consumables, everything else which exists within our business? It's a huge piece of work to map it out and understand what it looks like. But once we've got that as a baseline, we go on to project 2, which is setting the carbon reduction targets. So if we know that's our baseline, it's like, okay, how do we improve on every single one of those and actually become a much more sustainable business? So there's a big sort of like listen and learn acknowledgement piece on there. Really important to acknowledge, and sort of like the third market or the third project is the fact that actually we've got different markets, and that carbon footprint looks different in different markets. For example, if we're roasting beans in our roastery in Essex, it's kind of crackers to then send them to China. You think just how far that's traveled across the world, it's a long, long way. So it's about understanding what all of that needs to look like and how we can positively impact local markets there, how they source particular products, whether that be sort of plastic or energy within store and all that sort of stuff. So Costa was actually one of the founding signatories of the British Retail Consortium's climate roadmap, and basically we want to get well ahead of the government's target of 2050. We talk back that slide talks about in a minute. You've got sort of COP26 climate emergency and all those really important phrases. This is very much aligned to that, but actually trying to be ahead of it as well and saying, these are the areas we need to go. We've got a fully dedicated department who is just working on this all the time. And then in terms of like manifesting itself in our sort of bricks and mortar, if you will, we've created some really interesting, great eco stores, which provide proof points for the future, as well as having Europe's most sustainable roastery. So the store which you can see there is like an EcoPod store, and basically it's using great things like sort of solar panels, sustainably sourced timber instead of steel, great insulation, and it's zero energy. So actually it's generating more energy than is actually used. So in principle can sort of give back to the grid there. We're doing stuff with it EV as well, in the sense that so some of our partners are heavily involved in that, and it's like, how do we bring EV into the store and actually sort of contribute back into it? And then the roastery in Basildon, it's, as I say, it's the most sustainable in Europe. It's got some really interesting features like sort of like solar power on there. It harvests rainwater, electric car charging spaces, LED lighting. So actually we've sort of taken 30% of each ton of the energy which would be required is used up there. But also in terms of respecting resources, we've extended this to our store environments as well. So actually we often donate used equipment and used furniture to charities and social enterprises to help them fit out the kitchens. This stuff has still got life within it. But from a commercial aspect, you're kind of going, well, that the store needs to be sort of refitted to keep up with the current trends, but there is still a useful life within some of this stuff. So actually, if it can be repurposed, it's a really great way of giving it an extended life. We're also working on how we can ensure we reuse our construction waste when they're no longer of use to us. So all different aspects have been looked at within this. So that is essentially me, and I'd really welcome some questions, discussion points, and any stuff like that. And hopefully we can have a good conversation about it. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. Hopefully.
That was very, very interesting. It's fascinating to find out exactly what Costa have been doing over the years to kind of improve the planet. And I think it's great that you've got all the initiatives there that you've shared with us, Rhys. Thank you for the really, really detailed presentation. I'd like to open up the floor if anybody has got any questions for Rhys. Please feel free to ask.
Yeah, hi Rhys. Sorry, I've another question just on the cup collection recycling system. Is that something that would be available at, again, university sites, or would that be through current waste contractors?
So if you've got one of our stores there, then it can all go into the store, and then it gets backhauled out by Valpak. If you've got one of our We're Serving Costa Coffee sites, I'll need to look into whether that's becoming available. I know we had discussed how do we bring that into the We're Serving concept. As an immediate fix, you could actually take any of your stuff to a local Costa store. So if you're Brunel, I'm guessing there's probably one on the high street, not a million miles away. I don't know what the practicality of that is, but
yeah, I mean, we've got an extremely busy Costa. That wouldn't be a practical solution. We have been using Simply Cups, and we're going to use a Grundon specific one. But obviously it has its own challenges. I'd be interested to know, because obviously the Costa outlet, people come in, we've got a crockery option as well, but the majority of people will go for the disposable cup. And we've got the bins obviously in store, but the majority of people take those cups away.
Yeah.
To academic buildings or to lectures, places of work. And then obviously they're not captured. They end up in general waste. So it's a difficult challenge to increase the capture. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on how.
But my thoughts on that would be potentially Valpak might be able to help with that. So we use Valpak, who do the collections from our stores, and so we incentivize them to do so. So if you don't have a Costa store on site, or if the concern is more that they're getting sort of disposed of it in all sorts of places around the university, it may be that if you can consolidate those in one collection point, Valpak will actually be able to take those to the National Recycling Centre, which is closest to you, and then at least you'll have like a strong confidence that they'll be able to be recycled and repurposed.
Sure.
Rhys, is there a cost to that? Is there a cost to Valpak picking it up?
So if you're using one of our licensed stores, then no. If you're engaging directly with Valpak, I wouldn't be able to comment on their behalf. I'd suggest you speak to them and see what they can offer. So
what about a Proud to Serve store then?
Yeah, I think that's as just referred there. So I need to find out if we do have Proud to Serve, if it is possible within Proud to Serve. I think our logistics network is set up slightly differently, so it's focused on stores. But I will find out and post it to the group. I think it's probably the best answer.
Had a question come through from Ben. Will the major waste collectors such as Viola accept the cups with the plant-based lining into their recycling collections?
Yes. Yeah. Is it exactly the same from their perspective? So the part of the complication of rather than just sending it to sort of like local council waste and the complication of it needing to go to one of these 4 centres is that the lining has to be extracted. So the lining will still be extracted. So the finished product is actually still a plastic lining. It's a plant-based plastic lining. So that means it's kind of like in the growth of that plastic, it's very, very quick in comparison with sort of millions of years of of sort of decay to create an oil-based product. So it's plant-based rather than oil-based. But yes, they will absolutely 100% sort that out and take it through the national 4 national recycling centres.
Thanks for that, Rhys. I don't know if anybody else has got any other questions.
Sorry, Sarah, it's Caroline.
Hi, Caroline.
I've got a question. I can't see anybody. Sorry, and I couldn't find my hands up button. But a very quick question on the same theme. But what more practically, what bin would you put that new Costa Cup into?
So the new Costa Cup would still needs to go to one of those 4 national recycling centres, because the internal lining has to be extracted from it. So I'm not sure what your specific campus recycling waste stream looks like. If previously you had one which would take it to the 4 national cup recycling centres, it would remain exactly the same. If it's like a domestic recycling one, so like your home sort of green bin or something, it wouldn't go there, which would kind of be the challenge in it. So as I say, this is kind of like part of a 5-year plan for Costa, in the sense that we can't actually remove the lining. It's just not.
So you'd still dispose of it in a landfill bin at the moment?
As things stand, unless you can get it to a Costa store or other people who are also doing national cup recycling.
Okay.
I wonder if I can find you a link, which that might be useful. If I find you a link for where national cup recycling is actually available at the moment.
That would be great. Yes, please.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that.
Thank you.
I think most waste providers do offer a cup collection, though. I think.
Sorry, say again, Tim.
I think most waste providers do offer a cup collection service.
Yeah.
In terms of, like Grundon, Viola, Suez, all those.
Yeah. So exactly that. So if they're already doing that, then just continue as before. The point is, it's taken a lot less carbon to produce the cup in the first place, a lot less of drilling into the ground to extract oil.
I've just got one more question. Sorry, on the BERT cup hire system that is in trial, is that something that would be only to licensed stores, or would that be an option for Proud to Serve's, or we're serving?
It's kind of one step at a time at the moment. So at the moment, we're sort of getting all of the knowledge from the Glasgow trial. And I think there's about half a dozen stores which are involved in it in the Glasgow area. The idea being that you're not necessarily taking it back to the same store. I think once we've got the learnings from that, it's going to go into stores, and then it'll be a case of how do we cascade it on thereafter. But the one thing I'd say about purely on a sort of practical basis is within stores, we have the right facility to scan these things in terms of like the till systems and all that sort of good stuff. That's a little bit harder with we're serving Costa because it's kind of like the light touch, which doesn't necessarily have like the digital ecosphere which surrounds that. So if you imagine on our sort of on our Costa app, I don't know if you're a Costa app user, and like when you go into store, you sort of like collect your beans and stuff. That's all sort of like updating your personal profile. There's a lot of sort of data collated in that. So if you're doing a BERT scheme, your cup would effectively be recognised on that and become part of that ecosphere. So at the moment, we don't have that for we're serving, but it's a case of like let's see how it evolves over time.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any questions around the first part of the presentation when we talked around sort of people and different sort of schemes within that? I dare say you've all got your own sort of setups, particularly from a sort of student-facing perspective. No, we're all about recycling cups.
I think that's the general consensus on that one.
Yeah.
I have just a quick question, if you don't mind, about how to actually get people in, like, behind being more sustainable and getting them involved in, you know, these fundraising projects and initiatives that you've mentioned.
So sorry, how do we get people involved in that?
Yeah, because I think it's especially around like sustainability issues. I think not everyone wants to be a part of it or don't see the value behind it because it seems a lot of effort. So I was just wondering how you found to sort of portray these issues to people to get them on board.
It's a really good question. clearly, if everybody's pointed in the right direction, it does make life a lot easier in that regard. From us, I think from a fundraising perspective, it's something which is just continually messaged out there, and the fact that Costa's giving us a bit of skin in the game as people who work for Costa is quite good. So you saw my Santa Slave thing there. So, for me, that's a fabulous incentive to know that actually my company's got my back and they're going to throw a few quid into it. And so some of the local fundraising stuff, I think there's a bit of a keeping up with the Joneses aspect. So if you imagine sort of store level and stuff, they're kind of like, okay, we're going to beat the store down there because we're going to raise more than them. We're going to have more fun doing it. So a bit of sort of gamification is really important there. And it's like who's going to be the best one of the day. So
yeah. Thank you.
Sorry, Rhys, just to tick off the inclusivity bit at the beginning without no one asking any questions on it. Oh, sorry, my camera's not on. Is all of that information that was shown in the presentation, is that available? Is there marketing material, stuff that we can put on our university websites that can promote that? I mean, obviously we are a proud to serve as well. So do all of those initiatives filter down to a proud to serve offer as well?
In terms of like the belong schemes and the shine and all that sort of stuff?
All of it, really.
Yeah.
I mean, if we were to put it across as a message that Costa is one of our campus partners, providers, all being through a third-party contractor. It's good to be able to see that level of sort of provenance and inclusivity through our partners.
Sure. So of the 4 networks that were mentioned, 3 are kind of internal facing. They are for our own sort of core staff members, but the Shine one is actually very much an external facing one, and that's about sort of embracing it. And absolutely, you guys have access to all of that. So things like the rainbow cups and stuff, that they'll all be available in your supply chain, and there should be some POS available to support all of that as well. I think that message in particular is a really strong one within Gen Z, university campuses and that sort of stuff. So a great one to get behind. And then from a site level, it'd be sort of like about encouraging your own staff members to say, actually, we're going to dress up for this and we're going to sort of bring a bit of colour and fun to it. So you'd sort of align with our national campaign, if you will. Yeah,
perfect. I think certainly in universities, students are very quick to jump on companies or suppliers that we use that aren't necessarily ethical or sustainable or demonstrating inclusivity. So it's good to be able to have some sort of information available to say, look, this is what this company and this franchise.
100%. As a demographic in particular, Gen Z is very sort of purposeful and really sort of, they will buy into companies who are seen to be doing the right thing. And if they're not, then got to help them, sort of thing. So it's really, really important that those messages come through. But so the Shine Cups will be available through We're Serving Costa.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else got some questions or points or feedback?
Radio silence. I think it was a really, really fantastic presentation, Rhys, and it's so interesting to see all of the different parts that you've been playing. So are you happy to share the slides with us?
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
so that I can circulate to the group. A couple of people have asked if we can send them over to them. And as I said, we've also recorded the session, so we'll be able to share that with you after the call. If it's okay with you, Rhys, you had a couple of questions that you were going to go back and check. If I'm okay for you to come back with an answer before I send that email out to the group, and then we can clarify the question.
Yeah, sure. So National Cup recycling was the big one there, wasn't it? It's like how we get involved.
Yeah. National Cup, and does it work with the Proud to Serve?
Yeah.
As well. Yeah.
Leave that with me. I will do some investigating, and I'll see what I can find out for you.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Right, I think we'll wrap it up there, but thank you so much for your time today, everybody, for attending, and many thanks again to Rhys for an informative presentation. I will be sharing this shortly with everybody, so once we've had the answers back to Rhys, we'll get the presentation and clip to YouTube sent over to you. Have a lovely day, everybody, and thank you for attending this morning.
Thanks all.
Amazing. Thanks very much.
You.
Cheers, Rhys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.